The crowd in Luneta Park didn't know what they were about to witness that humid evening in Manila. People were busy with their own noise, vendors shouting prices, tourists taking photos, children chasing bubbles, when suddenly a voice cut through the air so clean, so breathtaking, that strangers stopped mid-step as if the world had pressed pause. It wasn't coming from a big stage or a famous performer. The voice belonged to a girl standing barefoot near the fountain, clutching an old guitar with chipped paint and strings that looked like they'd break any second. Her name was Althea Ramos, a 17-year-old from Tondo, Manila. But no one knew her. No one knew her story, her battles, her silence, her fire. They just heard a voice that could freeze the heart and melt it at the same time. Althea didn't sing for fame. She sang because it was all she had left. After her father died and her mother suffered a stroke, she became the breadwinner, performing on jeepneys, sidewalks, and anywhere someone could spare a few pesos. She would always whisper to herself before singing, "Lord, let this reach one heart today." She never realized how far that prayer would travel. That evening in Luneta, as her voice soared across the park, a man wearing a hoodie stood not far from the fountain. He was visiting Manila from Cebu for an event the next morning. His name was Marco Cruz, a well-known Filipino vocal coach who trained rising stars. But Althea didn't recognize him. She had no time for TV or social media. Survival didn't leave space for hobbies. Marco listened, stunned. He'd trained singers from all over the country, but her voice, raw, emotional, unpolished yet powerful, felt like a storm wrapped in silk. Something inside him shook. He walked closer, ready to speak to her after the song. But before he reached her, a sudden downpour began. People scattered instantly, running for shelter, and in the rush, Marco lost sight of her completely. He searched for 15 minutes but she was gone. For the next few days, he couldn't stop thinking about her. Her voice followed him like a haunting melody he couldn't shut off. He returned to Cebu frustrated yet obsessed with finding her. His friends teased him about the mystery fountain girl, but he didn't care. Something told him her life was about to change, and maybe his too. Meanwhile, Althea continued her routine. Morning at the wet market, afternoon taking care of her mother, evening singing wherever she could. She kept a tiny notebook where she wrote lyrics that no one would ever read. She dreamed of stages bigger than Luneta, but she kept those dreams buried deep so they wouldn't hurt her when reality reminded her who she was, a nobody from a rough neighborhood. One afternoon, as she sang near Divisoria, a group of older boys mocked her voice, calling her, "trying hard superstar." One boy grabbed her guitar and pretended to smash it like a rock star. The crowd laughed. But Althea didn't. She stared at them, tears burning behind her eyelids, but she didn't move. She'd learned that sometimes silence was stronger than anger. Eventually the boys dropped the guitar and walked away. But their laughter stayed in her head like a bruise. That night, she whispered to her mother, "Ma, maybe singing isn't for people like us." Her mother, still weak and struggling to speak, squeezed her daughter's hand softly. "Anak, your voice is God's gift. Don't hide it." Those broken words healed something in Althea that the world had been chipping away. What she didn't know was that the universe had begun working quietly in her favor. 2 weeks after the Luneta encounter, a video started going viral online. Some tourist had recorded her performance without her knowing. Someone had titled it, "Hottest Street Singer with the Most Insane Voice in Manila." The comments were overflowing, people from the Philippines, Singapore, the US, the Middle East, all shocked by the voice of a girl who didn't even know YouTube existed in her world. Marco saw the video on his feed and almost dropped his phone. "It's her," he whispered. He posted urgently, "Does anyone know this girl? I need to find her. She deserves the world." Millions shared his post. People searched Luneta, jeepneys, markets. But Manila was huge, loud, impossible to control. Still, one message landed in his inbox. I think she sings sometimes in Tondo, near Morians. Marco packed his bags that night and flew back to Manila the next morning. When he arrived in Tondo, the air was thick with the smell of street food and the noise of basketball games. He asked several people, showing them screenshots of the viral video. Some shrugged. Some nodded vaguely. And some pointed him to the small alley leading toward a cramped neighborhood where clothes hung above the streets like flags. He followed the sound of a guitar. And there she was, sitting on a plastic stool, tuning the same old guitar like she was preparing for a concert only she believed in. Marco approached slowly. "Hi," he said gently. "I've been looking for you for weeks." Althea blinked. "Me? Why?" "Because," he said with a trembling smile, "you have one of the most incredible voices I've ever heard." She laughed shyly, thinking he was teasing her. Then he showed her the viral video. Her eyes widened. "That's me," she whispered. "Yes. And millions have watched it." Her hands shook. She had never seen a video of herself before. Never imagined strangers around the world would cheer for someone like her. Marco continued, "Althea, you don't belong to the streets anymore. You belong on the world's biggest stages. Let me help you." Althea wanted to trust him, but poverty teaches you to doubt kindness. Still, the sincerity in his voice felt different. It felt safe. Over the next few weeks, Marco trained her in Cebu. He gave her new clothes, better shoes, and a proper guitar, not fancy, just decent enough to honor her talent. Every day she improved. Her voice grew stronger, her confidence deeper. For the first time, she saw herself not as a burden or a survivor but as an artist. Marco then registered her for a major national singing competition in Manila. When her name appeared on the list, the internet exploded. "The Fountain Girl is competing. The insane voice from Luneta is back. Filipina street singer goes viral." But with fame came pressure. Backstage on the day of auditions, Althea nearly collapsed from nerves. She stared at her trembling hands and whispered, "Lord, what if I fail?" Marco placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then we try again. But I believe you won't." When her name was called, the room fell silent. She walked onto the stage under the blinding lights. The judges stared at her, curious. She looked small, fragile, almost misplaced. But then the music started. And Althea transformed. Her voice rose like a storm breaking open the sky. Every note hit with emotion, pain, hope, grief, gratitude, all tangled together. People in the audience wiped tears. The judges exchanged stunned glances. When she reached the final high note, the entire studio erupted. Some stood. Some cried. Some shouted. And one judge slammed the golden buzzer so hard the confetti flew like a firework. Althea collapsed to her knees in disbelief. Marco ran onto the stage and hugged her. "Anak," he whispered, "you did it." But fate wasn't done surprising her. As the confetti rained down, a woman from the front row slowly stood up with tears running down her face. Althea gasped. It was her mother, who had traveled secretly with the help of neighbors Marco contacted. She had regained just enough strength to walk a little again. "Ma!" Althea cried. Her mother opened her arms, voice shaky but full of pride. "Anak, the world finally hears what I've always heard." The audience bawled. Even the judges wiped their eyes. That night, Althea realized something important. She had climbed not to escape poverty, but to honor everyone who had carried her through it, the neighbors who fed her, the strangers who listened to her voice, the mother who kept believing, and the man who searched a whole city to find her. Months later, Althea won the entire competition. Her life changed overnight. She moved her mother to a safe home, started helping kids in Tondo learn music, and used her voice to raise funds for families like hers. Fame didn't make her proud, it made her kinder. In an interview, when asked what kept her going, she simply answered, kindness. Every good thing that happened to me came from someone choosing kindness. And that became her story. Not just the girl with the hottest, most insane voice, but the girl who proved that talent shines brightest when matched with humility, heart, and hope. Because sometimes the most powerful voices come from the quietest streets. And sometimes the people the world ignores become the ones who inspire it the most. And in every person she helped, every stage she conquered, every child she inspired, her message stayed the same. You never know how powerful one act of kindness can be. It can save a dream. It can save a life. It saved mine.